St. Mary's Primary School, if you know the history of Barbados, is the first free primary school for the emancipated slave children. And it is a city school. Years ago, you had like the merchants setting up business in Baxter's Road and through the street along where the school is, and they would send their children to St. Mary's. In recent years, with the advent of more schools being built and the upward mobility of the Barbadian people through mainly education, you find that it has moved away where you get like all sorts of children now coming into the school, and it's an opportunity, especially for teachers who care, or Christian teachers, to make an input into their lives other than academic. You get a lot of persons living in the city who probably would be of the lower socioeconomic bracket, and they look to the school for that extra help with their children.
So on Fridays is the day that we actually carry out the Creative Minds Outreach Project. As soon as we arrive, we are bombarded with hugs. You know, Auntie Franz, Uncle Alan, they appreciate us coming, and once they're set up, we immediately begin the program. And we always start the program with singing. They love to sing.
Where he says I'm at, I know who I am. I'm walking in power, working miracles, the life of favor. Yeah, I know who I am.
So that's one of the key elements of our program. We utilize music, and once we started with our musical renditions and the songs that they like to see, that kind of open up their consciousness a little bit more, so they're able to receive information. Because, you know, we in the Caribbean, we love music. We love music. So that's a way of trying to build a common ground so that they are more receptive. And so for me, I just love the smile on their faces. I love when they get up and scream out loud, and they are engaged in the process, and they know the answers, and they get excited about learning. Because I believe that learning should be fun, and it should not be we're trying to hinder a person's creativity. So once we sing the songs that they like, then we go into the actual program and teaching them certain topics. And so we would have our poster presentation, we will have storytelling, and we try to make it as creative as possible. So they get fun, it's a fun atmosphere, but still they learn a lot from this session.
What did Daniel just do?
Litter.
Is littering good or bad?
Bad.
Okay.
I think that the university students who are involved in the Creative Minds program or project are seen as role models to the children, because from the time they enter the school, they're smiling, they're greeting the children, they're interacting. They're not stiff and standoffish at all. They greet them sweetly, and when it's over, they talk to them, they ask them all kind of questions, and they answer, they're warm. They're warm with the children. So the children appreciate that, and they look forward to them coming. Even they ask them about their accent. They don't talk like me. Where are you from? they really interact well with the children.
I thoroughly love the Creative Minds project because it involves enhancing the students' creative abilities. So they get to utilize things like storytelling, drama, to influence the primary school, the children of St. Mary's behavior and attitudes. And they love being part of that creative process. So for me, the project has really contributed in terms of helping students to understand their civic responsibility as a human being, and trying to propel them towards thinking outside the box in terms of giving back to their own society.
Children like to do, they like to see, they like to interact. So here you have this kind of activity going on where the children are actually involved. They're fully involved. And it lifts them, it brings joy to them. Great tool for teaching.
Sometimes if we are away from the school, even if it's a day, I feel sad because we didn't go there that Friday, and they know when we have not been there, they will miss us. And if we are missed, that means that we are making an impact. And we need more programs like this, regionally, internationally, because the kids are open, and it's better to teach them at that age, reception age and primary school age, so that we can have a greater effect on society. So I am so not only passionate, but I believe strongly that we need more programs like this.
Well, as an engineer, sustainable development to me is something that's very important. We're not only required to design structures and build to prevent, let's say, the building from collapsing, but you must also take into consideration the materials you're using, how much you're using, how does it affect the environment now, how will it affect the environment in the future. Worldwide, 40% of all resources consumption and waste generation is attributed to the construction industry. Cement production alone is responsible for producing 6% of carbon dioxide worldwide. Agenda 21 on sustainable development in developing countries has mandated the need for more innovative green materials. My project seeks to propose one of this material.
About Amrita, she's a brilliant young girl. When she came to me and told me, Dr. Mwasha, I want to do this research with you, I was very excited. I thought that is the right time to develop this research forward. And the right person is Amrita.
Now, if we can find a material that can reduce the usage of cement, or maybe replace cement for some uses, it will be beneficial globally. If we can reduce the amount of cement that is used and produced, then that will help the environment as a whole. My material is using recycled polystyrene dissolved in acetone and mixed with sharp sand to produce mortar for the purpose of holding masonry blocks together. Using recycled polystyrene will not only be beneficial to the construction industry, it is also an effective form of waste management. It is using the unwanted waste and putting it to purposeful use.
Styrofoam is made up of polystyrene material itself, and about 98% is air. So if you can remove the air from that material, you can have about 2% only of that material. So in that case, we are reducing the size of polystyrene by removing the air in it.
They have tried mechanical compression to compress a large amount of polystyrene into one space. They have tried chemical densification and all of that. But when you compress this waste and you reduce it to a small volume, what are you going to do with it? So my project is trying to use this waste material and find a purpose for it.
It doesn't make sense for us to wait for people to come from other parts of the world to come and do research for us. If we've got the capacity ourselves, we've got the brain, we've got the resources, we can be able to utilize them and do research for the future generation of the people of the Caribbean.
Well, right now, what can be done? I think it's only we, the young people, can make that change, because we will be responsible for transferring this culture on to the next generation. So maybe if we can just live in love and spread our love throughout this generation, pass it on, it can probably break that chain.
My project, which looks at the vulnerability of tourism livelihoods, targets 3 SDGs actually. First of all, it looks at SDG 5, which is gender equality. So there is a gender component to my research comparing the vulnerability of males and females to hurricanes. The second SDG that it looks at is SDG 8, which is decent economic growth and work. In looking at the tourism sector, I also uncovered problems with the tourism industry, persons not being able to make profit as much as they should. So basically the project is exploring entrepreneurship, exploring options that craft vendors and persons on the ground need to be successful.
She also spoke to people in other aspects of the tourism industry. And I think what I would like to see her looking at would be to figure out across the board for a variety of different livelihoods, what is it that people can do, how can they change their strategies in order to be less vulnerable than they are at the moment.
And the third SDG that I looked at was, or that falls in line with my project, is SDG 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. Now, under this component, there is a disaster risk management aspect, and disaster risk management is very important to achieving the sustainable development goals because of the potential of disasters to affect the economy. Now, from this research, I looked at the 4 different communities, so I am going to suggest measures for each different community in terms of what they can do to increase their resilience and reduce their vulnerability.
So my grandmother died of colon cancer when I was 13 years old. And during that period, I remember witnessing my mom being very confused about how to get my grandmother through this period and what are the best ways to take her through this time so that she would survive. And that experience has taught me how difficult it is. It's a very, very difficult word to hear, but it doesn't need to be. You just need the right support system and the right assurance.
The word cancer is a horrible thing to be told that you have. And this is what the patient navigator should try to help that person realize what is the next question you should ask, and what is it, do we have the resources to take it along?
So the Caribbean Cancer Research Initiative, or CCRI, is a non-profit organization that was co-founded by me and one of my colleagues with an aim to improve patient outcomes, cancer patient outcomes in the Caribbean, and to prevent more cancers. But the avenue that we're using to do this is entirely through research. So we are trying to set up research-based or data-driven initiatives and projects, of which our patient navigation project is one of them.
Kimberly approached me telling me about this project and saying, really what the local situation is that cancer is one of the biggest problems that we have in Trinidad. And the system for supporting cancer diagnosis and cancer treatments is really sort of unknown. And we don't really have any sort of analysis of what is going on a local level in terms of how we approach this problem.
So this project is important because it is an innovation that will save patients' lives. It will improve cancer patient outcomes in the Caribbean. It will remove all of the barriers that a person will experience once they are diagnosed with cancer so that they can have the best possible outcomes.
Patients, when they find out that they're diagnosed with cancer, often have no idea how to navigate the medical system, the scientific literature, the genetic testing. They have no idea what the process is. And so what they really need is someone to sort of help hold their hand and walk them through that process, let them know what their options are and what are the next steps now that you have this diagnosis, or now that someone in your family has this diagnosis.
Once a patient gets diagnosed, the plan is for the patient navigator to pick up these patients automatically once there's a diagnosis of cancer. There's a lot of things that need to be done. And there's a great need for a patient navigator. There are a lot of patients, there are a lot of people out there that need help. Money is the last thing that I trust that can get anybody through cancer.
So it really is going to help, we think, to have someone both in person and online helping you navigate the entire medical system and all of the information that you need to get, all the processes that need to be done, and what you as a patient need to do to really drive your treatment forward.
So the second part of our project is what we call a virtual or web-based patient navigation program. So for those people who do not have access to a personal patient navigator, this is a tool that will be able to allow you to basically understand what you're about to go through in the simplest format. And the reason why I thought this was useful is because when you get diagnosed, if you go online to try and figure out what does this mean, what do I do next, a lot of the information is very heavy. It's a lot of text to sift through, and a lot of times you don't understand. So we thought of a method in order to take all of that information and make it into something a little bit more seamless and simple.
I mean, cancer research is a huge thing in, North America and Europe. There's a lot of money that goes into this, and a lot of amazing discoveries in terms of diagnosing and treating cancer. have come out of that. But we, for some reason in the Caribbean, have not invested in cancer research. Kimberly has decided that she has this one mission, to understand the cancer situation in Trinidad and Tobago, and that was the context in which I met her. But deciding to work with someone, especially a long-term relationship like an advisor, PhD student one, means that you have to really like each other. And you have to be able to stand this person for many years to come, right? I really like Kimberly. I think she has a great energy, and her passion for her work comes through on a daily basis. She's an extremely hard worker. She's very smart. She knows what she's about, and I mean, those are all qualities that I like and I respect. She's been able to rally, you know, now maybe 20-something volunteers from all sorts of different areas, and she just really like holds the whole thing together. I mean, she's there, she's in it. She's really committed to this.
So we chose this community, Jeffreytown, which is located in the parish of St. Mary, Jamaica, because we thought it was one of the most outstanding communities in the news in Jamaica as well, in terms of their development initiatives, their projects, as well as some of the programs they have within that community. So our main objective was to assess as well as measure the extent to which they can align their development projects and initiatives with this overarching sustainable development goal agenda created by the United Nations.
SDG number 4, quality education, was an SDG that we saw coming out at the in the Jeffreytown community. They had several projects that focused on the beautification of schools to ensure that students are coming into environments that they're comfortable. Another aspect of it was in terms of focusing on youth employment and just reinvigorating the youth within the community through education. They partnered with the Heart Institute to provide training in technologies such as in media and technology.
Most of what they have done has to do with the infrastructure that they have put in. They have really used what was available to them, what is available to them, with little funds that they may get from institutions outside of Jeffreytown. They have been able to put things in place. For example, they built a gabion wall, and that really is just to protect against the river, the flow of the river, so that the erosion of the roadways and so on, it protects against that. They have put in culverts. They have found innovative way to ensure to harvest water, because Jeffreytown is located between two watersheds. I think it's the Rio Nuevo and the White River watershed. And so what they have done, they have found a way to harness the water to provide water for the community.
They actually have school feeding programs that I think service about 3 schools in the wider community. They provide breakfast and are looking to expand this program. And what's great about it is they use breadfruit flour and dried goods, which really is a sustainable way of using your products that encourages, you know, eating local and supporting local products.
The other SDG, I would say, is the partnerships that they have developed over the years. Right now, they are involved in a project with the CDB. It's a integrated risk reduction project with the CDB. They are working. It's a big project for them, and they are working right now with them. The gabion basket wall that they did some time ago, they did that with help from the Environmental Foundation of Jamaica, and they have done work with several local entities, Jamaica Business Development Corporation, and they continue to do work. So as it is right now, they're working through the SDGs. They're working through several of them, And in a sense, they have brought it home to their local situation without even realizing that they have done so. And that's amazing to me.
When I take pictures in my community, I do feel a sense of disbelief because there isn't much going on there. And pictures, they would show that there's just land that's just not used. There isn't much for children, and it's more or less a barren sort of place, I would say, in my description. There isn't much going on, and you can see that. It's almost depressing. Taking pictures in my community would actually show that it doesn't make me feel happy or what's going on in my community right now, because I believe that there is a need for change, for it to be improved for the better of the people and everyone else here.
I chose Princestown for Photo Voice because, well, firstly, it was ranked as the second highest community with poverty in Trinidad and Tobago by the Ministry of People and Social Development. And it was secondly, this is a community I grew up in. And for me, when I look at Princestown, I see an area with a lot of potential. The people within the area are very skilled and talented. They could take anything and make it into something. And this is what the rest of Trinidad just not seeing, they're just seeing poverty. But through the use of photographs, it could be used as shock therapy for the policymakers so that they could say, okay, this is a community that needs serious attention. We need to focus some resources in this area.
Patrice, to me, has all the qualities of a great leader to be, a great manager to be, somebody who can inspire others to follow her. And in coming together to do this project, I saw it in the way she was able to motivate, mobilize, and also instruct the young people in the way they should go with this Photo Voice project.
Photo Voice really has 3 phases. In phase 1, you would have the recruiting of participants, you would have the training of photography skills to the participants, you would have them going out into the communities taking pictures, coming back, discussing the pictures in our learning circle, and then selecting the photographs with the best captions to put in our photo exhibit. At the photo exhibit is where we would invite policymakers and gatekeepers of the community who really anybody who could make a change in the community, come and see what is being done, what the community is interested in.
What I love about photography is that it is a medium for creation, and I am a person, I love creating, making. You are in complete control. You are able to mold and shape and make it into what you like. That is a way that you will be able to express yourself without anybody having anything to say about it.
The second phase of Photo Voice is where the researchers go back into the community and have really discussion. How we're going to build the programs, find out what programs they are interested in coming out of the photography.
With pictures, just like literature, you'd have to analyze what you see. Because even though you have words and they are there, you still have to find a deeper understanding of what it would mean. Just like that, pictures would tell you that story. You have to look deeper than just what that is right there and understand what is supposed to be told.
That now led to the third phase, which is really the implementation of these programs that were designed in phase 2.
Sustainable development to me means capacity building in people of communities. Communities being the basic building block of society. This capacity building is all that they can do, all that they can share, because they are the professionals of their own experiences. And what has been happening for far too long is that things have been imposed upon communities, thereby preventing sustainable development. And sustainable development is just a tagline.
I was very interested to really build on the skills that they already have and bring it to the population of Trinidad and Tobago. This is what Princestown has to offer, not just poverty, not just the increase in crime rate, but we have skills, we have talent, we have educated people coming out of this community.
So coral reefs grow best in nutrient-poor environments because they like the clear water and they can create their own nutrients through photosynthesis. So they don't need any nutrients in the water. And then when there's coastal development from humans, there's always runoff of nutrients into the water. And this can be from sewage, from agriculture, fertilizers, from a number of different sources. And then those all combined have encouraged growth of other organisms, so algae, sponges, and things like that that can be detrimental to coral growth and cause stress.
One organism that we don't tend to pay too much attention to are excavating sponges. And these are silent and oftentimes inconspicuous, and yet quite prevalent on coral reefs. And one thing about them is that because they're so inconspicuous, their activity goes unmeasured. And what they do basically, they will penetrate into the calcium carbonate structure and just eat it from inside out. So they actually play a very important role in this bioerosion activity. And the last study in Barbados was carried out in the late 1990s. And we haven't done anything since.
The goal of this project is kind of to evaluate the abundance and distribution of these sponges around Barbados's coast on the patch reef and the bank reefs, and then look at their relative abundances in relation to nutrient gradients along the coast and human, I guess, settlement and industry, and see if there's a link between that, and then kind of then develop and work with a management plan about how we can clean up our waters, reduce stress on our reefs, and kind of come back from this towards more healthy reefs.
The health of a coral reef is fundamentally, if we just flesh out all the meat, comes down to two fundamental processes. The creation of the calcium carbonate structure by the corals, and then the bunch of organisms that, and also physical processes that are actually eroding that calcium carbonate structure. And you have a healthy reef as long as the corals continue to, the activity of the corals exceeds the amount of calcium carbonate structure that is eroded, right? And therefore, because we live times where coral reefs are under threat and corals are struggling with many other stressors, it is important to know more about this sort of silent component of our coral reefs and almost inconspicuous component of our coral reefs to whom we don't necessarily pay that much attention to.
We normally arrive down at the yacht club where we keep the boat at about 7:30 in the morning, and we have all the gear in a locker there, so we just unload it onto the beach. And then I swim out to the mooring and get the boat in the very cold water. And yeah, we drive it into the beach. And we load up, and it's generally just me and an assistant. Otherwise, it's kind of a small boat and it gets a bit crowded. And then We drive out to the site and we have all the GPS coordinates loaded onto the GPS. And when we get there, we anchor, and a lot of them are next to sandy areas, so it's pretty easy for us to anchor. And then we get all the gear set up and we go diving. At each site, I have 6 quadrats set up. They're permanently marked, which we monitor over time, and they're each 5 by 5 meters squared. So I have a massive quadrat that we take down and set up there, and then we run ropes across in 1 meter intervals. So it kind of makes everything easy to find within the quadrat, so you can take repeat measurements of the same individuals. And I have everything mapped within there, so I can find everything and everything photographed. And I just record, and then we move to another one, and then we go through all 6 at each site.
Coral reefs are important not only because of their intrinsic high diversity, but also because they provide valuable ecosystem services to Caribbean societies. One that is perhaps the best known is that they act as a barrier against wave action and storms and hurricanes, and therefore help protect the shoreline, which will be something that will be a major issue with increasing climate change.
To me, sustainable development just means that human activities and human development are occurring in, I guess, in sync with nature and the natural surroundings. So we need, especially on island communities, we need the ocean and we need nature and we need coral reefs for livelihoods through fishing and coastal protection and tourism. And if we're developing sustainably, we need to protect those things alongside developing our on-land communities. And it's a big thing that people don't really understand, that what you do on land impacts the ocean as well, and vice versa. So, and then whatever you put in the ocean seems like it's just going away, but actually it will impact your community in the long run.
So what do I love about the West Indies? I suppose the easier question is what I don't love about the West Indies. But I love the people, the color. When I was living abroad for a while, it was very dull. So I really appreciate the color and the vibrancy, the food, most of all, but also the intellect of the people who are living here. I believe that we have the capacity, the intellectual capacity to be and do anything that we want to.
Yes, we have our differences and we kind of get it wrong sometimes, but in mere fact that when we stand up regionally, we become one voice, one nation. I can say that our people have been resilient and we continue to fight for the things that really matter to us. We continue to fight for environmental issues in our waters. We continue to fight against poverty as a region, as a whole. And that's why I love working for the University of the West Indies, because it's like our one voice. We have separate campuses, but when we meet, we know that we are fighting for the same things. The same type of issues really matter to me. So I just love the resiliency of our people and that we can get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong, but we get it right most of the time.
I love the celebratory air in which we live. I love the rhythms and the sounds of the place. I love the friendliness of the people, the way that you could strike up a conversation with anybody. People look at each other, they talk to each other, they observe what's going on around them, and they comment. And sometimes you don't want the comments, but they comment anyway. But I love that there's interaction, and you don't find that in lots of other places. People tend to keep to themselves or just go about what is their own business. And yeah, I suppose, well, minding other people's business is something you have to love and hate at the same time. It makes it interesting.